Good afternoon. Now, this week's topic, Jim, how long do you think a property spends on the market in Fife? That is what we're going to discuss today.
QVT.
Yep.
There's an abrupt end.
Um,
It's like this is where you're no way for a cup of tea in the interim. It's like because you'll get caught out coming back with your tray.
yep. Yep.
Show me eggs
So,
there, cup of tea and trays and stuff. It's like
yeah, the tray kind of, yeah, you won't be getting a tray these days. No, definitely not.
so.
This week's
Sophie, how
topic
long
then.
does it take? How long does a property spend on the market in Fife? This is what we need to. This is what we need to answer. And I think you've done some wonderful detail on this. You've got some graphs as well, which is amazing
Yep.
to talk about this. So fire away. Tell us all about it.
Yes. So yes, we've got graphs, we've got figures, statistics, because we love all of that stuff, as I'm sure you guys do as well. Now, throughout the whole show, this is live, so feel free to drop any comments. Obviously, relevant questions, we will come back to you. Or if this is a rerun and you're watching the rerun, we will come back to you as well if you want to put anything in the comments. But this is it's a big topic because some of the things we're going to discuss in here, we've come across a lot when we're going out to market appraisals and valuations, or even speaking with buyers and sellers on the market, and kind of the mindset that comes along with how long does a property spend on the market. So,
Yeah.
when you're browsing,
Here's a great start for you. Do you
yeah,
know there's a prominent estate agent in Fife that 85% of their stock is slow moving?
yes,
85% of their stock is slow moving stock. In other words, they're
yeah,
struggling to sell it. I know
hmm,
we're a lot less, significantly less, by the way, but that's actually
yes,
quite surprising. You would
hmm,
nobody would ever think that. I'm not going to say who it is, obviously, but that's a revelation in itself. And the reason I know that is because we get access to the Rightmove data, so we're able to look at all these details and actually benchmark ourselves against other agents because we do. You have to be number one somehow.
absolutely, yes.
So
So
what about when you're browsing portals like Rightmove, Zoopla, and On the Market? What have we got to think about that?
yeah, so this is where the mindset comes then, because many people wonder why some Fife homes linger on the market, or we would
Mhm.
maybe say stick for longer than others. And it's easy to assume that there's something wrong. That's just an automatic mindset, is what's wrong with the property. Is it that there's something wrong with the property? Is it an inflated asking price, or is it just a lack of interest? That's not always the case. Each individual property has its own story. And sometimes it can simply be down to, perhaps, is it poor marketing? Is it unrealistic expectations? Or even a change in the seller's circumstances, which is an aspect that people just don't even consider or even think about. They automatically assume the worst and go, there's something wrong with the property.
Yeah,
Assume
it
the
could be
worst.
it could be your property's pants.
Could be that as well, yes. Which nobody
It
wants.
could be your property's bogging, is the expression it will have.
Yeah,
And
we don't say
it's just
anything
like
at all.
you've just got to get on with it, and you know the phrase, you can't polish a. And
Yeah, but you can roll it in
sometimes
glitter.
yeah
You can roll
sometimes
it in glitter.
yeah sometimes well put a bit of glitter in it.
Yeah. See? There's always a way.
So it's a number of different things, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm amazed at sometimes how actually people automatically assume that, though. They assume because a property has actually been on the market for quite a while that there must be something wrong with it. I've heard that time and time again when I go out to see people, and yet I've sold numerous properties over the years that have been in the market for a while, but I've ended up selling them for more than what it was on for when it
Mhm.
was first put on. And
Yep.
the reason sometimes for that is because your buyer's not in the market at this point in time. It's purely down to that. When you look at these things, like here's the buyer triangle. So marketing triangle. So basically, lower price point down the bottom here, huge audience. As the price goes up, the audience gets smaller, to the point that you've got a £2 million pound home in Fife, and you've got one person up here looking to buy it, but you've got to wait for that one person to make a decision. That's why you have to have a really good strategy of reaching outside of Fife to people outside. And it's not because you're a brand name or you're a high street name or anything like that. It's because you've got the tools and you've got the everything else to do that. What about if you're on the other side of the fence then? If you're on the other side of the fence and you're currently we've talked about things like buying and what's wrong and all the rest of it. What have we got to think about that if we're on the other side of the fence?
Yeah, so, you know, if you currently are selling a home in Fife, you're probably asking yourself, why is this taking so long? You know, is it that your property seems to be lingering on the market, or are you struggling to find your dream home? Because delays are often a natural byproduct of the kind of property market's ebbs and flows. But the ultimate question is...
Had it recently. Had it recently, though. Had it recently. Let me just talk about that now. I had it recently where the person decided, actually, we were about to get offers. We got an offer on their house, didn't we? In the East Neuk area. Got an offer on the house. A fantastic offer, to be honest. It's way beyond what the discussion I had with him in the first place. But then he went to look at the property he'd offered on a second time, and he actually said, oh, we don't actually want it now. So now they've said they've got nowhere to go, so they're taking their house off the market now. And it's like, no, that's how you got it. It's like, manage the sale for goodness sake. But some people you just can't tell because they're I think the word is autocratic. They're quite dominant. It's like my way. I want to be in control. It's like I know best. And it's just the way they are. It's just the way they're wired up, I suppose. And it's difficult for them to take advice from their estate agent because they see them selling I could do this myself, and I know exactly what I'm doing. The number of people I actually come across going, I used to be in a estate agency, so I know what I'm doing. It's like, how long ago was that? Oh, 30 years ago. It's like, boy. Hey, it's changed from quill and ink, by the way. We're now in a digital revolution. We're now in video tours and presenter talk-ups and retargeting technology through social media, and they just look at a blank face and they go, maybe you should just take over.
Yeah, exactly. But the ultimate question then is, how long is too long to wait before something changes?
Well, let's face it. When your home stays unsold for actually longer than expected, frustration sets in, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%.
And I suppose, is it the market? Is the price too high? Or is there simply just less demand for your type of property? I think that's all the things that goes through people's heads. I think a lot of the time, sometimes they're just like it's an easy option for people to blame the agent. And I'm talking about every estate agent. It's an easy option for a seller to blame an estate agent, possibly even for their own failings or their own high standards about the price they want, the expectations they want. If their home sits at the premium end of the market, for example, delays are literally just par for the course. If you're in St Andrews, for example, right now, there's an oversaturation with the new builds that are going on there now. They're literally giving them away for low deposits. They're giving free furniture and free land and building transaction tax, stamp duty and stuff like that, and making it easy. And they're setting you up with a bank and everything so you can get the lending as well. So they're making it easy access and easy entry to buy their properties. You can't do that as a reseller. You can't give people free stamp duty because that's almost £50,000-60,000 on a 600 grand property. So that's why that market's saturated to just now. There's about 6 or 7 months worth of stock in the St Andrews area. If you look at the East Neuk area, it's just under 4 months as well.
Yeah.
Again, a similar situation, and the draconian approach to the holiday homes and the second home legislation and the serviced accommodation legislation and the licensing and the second the council tax doubling for people that have got second homes is obviously had some sort of mass exit effect. And we can get the flags out and go, yeah, hey, these people are selling now. Somebody else can get in, but a first-time buyer can't afford something at £500,000.
No.
So you're not helping anybody really. All you're just doing is you're just giving it to another person. We might actually move from Glasgow or Edinburgh, and that's fine, into the area because they want to retire there, and they'll happily sell their £1 million home and downsize to, well, they don't even downsize, do they? They get a bigger property for half the price.
Yeah.
So what's not to love about that opportunity? So it doesn't really help the people in the local area. Only house building will help, by the way. New house building will help that. Social affordable housing will help that. But that's another story. Let's not get me started on that, because I'm a real I'm a real advocate for social and affordable housing. It's the most important thing for people to have a safe and secure home, and security as well, because it has the health benefits, the educational benefits that come out of that as well. Anyway, I'm off.
That's a different show, Jim.
So if you're home, I mean, the higher property values have few buyers, meaning patience is literally just a virtue for you. But even so, the right strategy can make all the difference. Let me give you an example. One of the biggest culprits for a slow sale is overpricing. It is also the failure of the existing seller to understand that even though their home report was at the right value when they first put it on the market, that possibly it is now overpriced in comparison to what's currently on the market. And they just won't, some people just won't accept that. But they have to accept that in order to get the sale. And an easy way to find out if you're on the market right now and you're sitting thinking to yourself, why is my house not selling? Because it's been on for a long time. Have a look at your price point that you've got. Type in 25,000 either side on as the bandings on Rightmove. So if your house is sitting at 400,000, put in it for 375 to 425 on Rightmove, and look at everything within a 5 mile radius of your house in the Rightmove area and on Rightmove itself. Or you can do it with Zoopla as well. It's got the same search criteria, and then see what comes up. It competes against your property because there's a limited amount of buyers on the market. For example, I could tell you, for example, every single time, 19 people on average last year, every month, bought a property in the East Neuk area. 19 people, that's it on average. So if you've got 80 properties on the market right now, literally you've got 4 months worth of stock for people. And that's an easy benchmark that you can understand. If you watch, for anybody listening in or tuning in right now, if you watch your update that you do for your weekly update, your weekly market update that you do, Sophie, on a Monday,
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock on a Monday. So if you watch that weekly upper market you do on a 10 o'clock on a Monday, or you watch the rerun, because they're all still there on the social media, they're on YouTube, they're on Instagram, they're on all the different channels. If you watch them, you'll get an insight into how many people are actually buying and how many people are selling in your area in particular. Because we subdivide it into Cooper, St Andrews, East Neuk, Leadenmouth, Glenorthis, Kirkcaldy and Dunfermline. And you'll get an idea how many people are buying and selling every week. And every month as well, actually do.
Yeah, so Mondays I'll be doing a month. On Monday I'll be doing the January's month statistics.
January month, yeah. It'd be interesting to see if you can get the yearly ones for 2024.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. So catch up and see if you can get the yearly one, because it'll be there. All that data will still be there, and it'll be interesting to see the 2024, because that's where I got the average for East Neuk. I just basically got the yearly data for the sales, and I took that, divided it by the 12, and I got the average monthly amount. So you can do that with all the other ones, and then it gives you a handle about how many people buy and sell in the area, particularly in the regions of the Fife area. And they all have their own multifaceted approach, and they all have their own individual smaller markets and micro regions. But on a macro level, the whole of Fife, we discussed that as well. But one of the biggest ones is, as I said, is overpricing. But you might have been on the market for quite a while, and you might be overpriced in comparison to that. So if any agent, if it's worth their salt, would actually do an assessment of that, then feed back to their customer if at this point in time they're probably overvalued in terms of what currently is on the market right now. Now, some people might say, I've got all the time in the world, I'll happily wait. That's okay. But how long do you want to wait?
Exactly.
That's probably the key as well. I think that's what you've got to think about.
Definitely.
So I think that's what you've got to think about. An unrealistic asking price can stop potential buyers from even booking a viewing. That's key. So here's a classic example: realignment. Come on, let's give Blackside a throw for this. Let's talk about Blackside, because this was a really good one. It originally came on the market about 600,000, I think it was, or it might have been 700,000. Yeah,
700, yeah.
About 700,000. So, a year passed, reluctancy, seller just wouldn't acknowledge the fact that they need to reduce their price. Eventually, we convinced them reducing their price, and we eventually got to a price about realignment. Now, it wasn't about, we told them quite clearly, this is not about giving away your property for less money. This is about attracting a buyer from a different price banding and pushing them back up.
Yep.
They took a leap of faith and actually said, yep, we understand, because we've done it all the time and we know it works. So they took a leap of faith. They did it. We actually ended up at 585. That's under 600,000 for a 700,000 pound property, and then pushed it back up to 695,000 pound with the offer. Added another 100,000 when the person came through the door and got the original value in the first place. Now, some would say, why did you not do that in the first place? Well, it was maybe took a year for that buyer to come into the market because of the price point. Remember, it's Levenmouth. That's a high price point for Levenmouth. That's a way beyond. That's almost like St Andrews prices when you come to that. And that's Levenmouth. So that's an astronomical figure to get for an agent to get in the Levenmouth area, definitely. And I think it shows expertise in terms of negotiation, and actually strong negotiation as well, which is what we excel in. Hence the reason why we've been the #1 estate agent in Scotland for 4 years in a row. So I think that's the sort of thing. Why do first impressions matter then? That's the thing I would ask you.
First impressions are a really crucial thing, because active buyers out there that are viewing potentially multiple properties automatically are going to compare everything that they see. They're going to compare everything that they see online before deciding which properties are worth their time to go and view. But the bottom line is, if you are overpriced and your price doesn't align with potentially other properties that are also on their list that they want to view, then you're already at a disadvantage. Your property could get pushed to the bottom of the list, and they'll go and step foot in these other doors. And ultimately, we need people through your door, so at least we then have people to negotiate with. As soon as we get people through your door, that's when we can then start negotiations. But we can't start negotiations until we have somebody through your door, and we can only get people through your door having it priced realistically, accordingly. But also, we're very aware that we're not undervaluing your property either. We're getting it priced just right on the market to let us start negotiations.
I think that's key in this type of market. So in the boom market, which was a couple of years ago, by the way, the boom is over. If you've not noticed, for anybody out there that's buying or selling, the boom is over. It's gone. We're now in a hot sellers market to balanced market in the northeast of Fife. Balanced, I would say, balanced to not really a buyer's market, but just balanced at this point in time in the northeast of Fife. Central Fife is a seller's market, and west of Fife is a hot sellers market. So it's going quite well. So basically the time to sell, and we could break it down as we go along by tenure and stuff like that, by property type, and we will do here. But just to give you an insight into what it is in the regions, it will sell quicker in the west of Fife than it will in the northeast of Fife, and Central Fife is about 2 months to sell as well, overall, in average. The one thing I would say definitely to remember is you were saying there about first impressions count, and buyers compare everything they see online, deciding property is worth on time. And you're absolutely right when you talk about being realistic at the price point to attract that buyer through the door, because I think most sellers actually don't understand that you can't just drag somebody off the street, and you don't magically have somebody on a full list of databases that are ready to go and in a position to proceed. The cyclical nature of the market, and we've just explained there in terms of Fife, it takes 2 months on average
Mhm.
to sell.
Yeah.
So every 2 months, your buyers have actually changed. Every
Yeah.
2 months, your buyers are changing.
Mhm.
That's what happens. They're changing every single 2 months. So you can't really stick your neck out as an estate agent anyway and go, I've got a long list as long as your arm of people to buy a property. Well, I think that's maybe bending the truth a bit. Or as they would say in court, I think you must be mistaken.
Yeah.
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 That's a polite way of saying something else. I'll not
Very,
say it. Yeah.
very polite. Yes.
But
We've actually
that's
got
but that is the key. So the
Mhm.
first impressions, Mark, you're absolutely right. It's about bringing it down, but it's also about pushing it back up and negotiating it back up as well once you introduce it and get people through the door. So the strategy of boom market was, let's go for the stars and we'll catch the moon on the way down. That was the sort of thing. But now in this type of market, it's like, let's be realistic in the beginning and actually get a right price point and offering. So if your home reports are, for example, at 425, probably do it sub 400. About 395 to 397 in order to attract the right person through the door. And yeah, you could probably push them up by 30 grand because most people have 10% more than their budget that they're shopping up to in reserves just in case. Typically, if they get a bad property, then they've got money to refurb. And that's what a lot of sellers don't understand. And that's why it's attractive to put a lower price point to attract that person in the door. I fell foul of that. Was it fell foul? Yeah, probably years ago. I remember going in, and this shows you how long ago this is. It was a 3-bedroom semi-detached property, and it overlooked the whole of Leiden from the hill, overlooking the petrol station, Canarchy Road, Canarchy Park, probably. Canarchy Crescent. There you go. That's where I lived. All these years ago. 3-bedroom, semi-detached, and it was on, and it was. I tell you what, it wasn't great. It needed a lot of work done to it. It was a lot of woodworm, a lot of rot, a lot of damp, and they had it attractively priced at £44,000. And I went, wow, that's about the price less than the price of a 1-bedroom flat now. You would get for that, I suppose, 44 grand. But I tell you what, when I walked through the door, I thought, I need to have this. And I ended up paying, I think, something like 55,000 instead, because I bid it with everybody else, because they put it at a really low price to get everybody through the door. They put a closing date, and obviously I had to put it higher in order to get it. And then I spent a fortune on it trying to do it. But then years later, about maybe 5 years later, I then ended up selling it for about 65,000. So I just got my money back and got out with my shirt on my bag, but it wasn't great. But my point is, if you had a skilled estate agent at that time, they probably would have been able to push that up higher as a result of that. But I know the experience I had, and I know the experience I have as a buyer, as an investor landlord with other agents as well. And when it comes to negotiation, a lot of them are pants. And you know, I'll be honest about it, and that's my view. And it's not an estate agent's point of view; it's actually an investor and a buyer's point of view. The negotiation isn't there at all. I've run circles around them easily.
Yeah.
And I've done that for a lot of years because they don't understand what's coming. They don't understand what's happening. And they don't understand how I'm effectively manipulating them as a buyer. That's all it comes down to. And if I've got that insight and you've got that training as well, you understand completely how to turn it around the other way and actually negotiate a buyer to a higher price without them actually knowing it.
Yep.
But it's important for the seller to understand you've got to be realistic and set your price where we're talking. It's like, my house isn't selling. That's because you're not listening to a word I'm saying to you about what you're meant to be doing. You're not listening. I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. But you're not letting me do it. So how am I meant to sell your house if you won't let me do what I'm meant to do? It's like asking somebody to score a goal, but then tying their feet together.
Yep.
Or tying one leg behind their back and go on, have a go and score that goal. How? You're not letting me do anything. You're restricting me. You're not letting me do what I'm meant to be doing, even though I'm giving you the advice, and you're not allowing me to do it. I think that's the most important thing. Let's get back and not labour that point. Hopefully people understand that completely. If you're on with an agent now, then go and speak to them about it.
Yep, absolutely.
The latest market trends in Fife then. Let's look at that. What is the data you've collated and what does it highlight? What is it showing us?
So I'm going to talk you through our first graphic. So this will give you a great visual representation, if obviously that is what you prefer, rather than trying to listen to all our facts and figures. So this is how long does a property spend on the market in Fife? And this is figures January 2024 versus January 2025. And this is from this data, we've not got this, we've got this from the Denton House research. So that it highlights how long properties in Fife have been on the market today compared to January 2024. So it's giving you an insight into
this is taken into account. This is actually to completion. So this is actually from the time it was listed to the time it was completed, keys handed over. So what I talked about average month to sell, average time to sell is 2 months in Fife. That's from the point of putting on to the time of getting an offer and accepted on it, not the next bit, which is conveyancing the solicitor, which adds on to this, which reflects the both parts of this here.
So we have then, firstly, we're going to start with detached. So you can see straight away there. So the red graph part of it you can see is for January 2024. The green is for January 25. Hopefully nobody's colorblind that's watching this, otherwise you might not see the colors. But if you are January 24, there was 138 days versus 161 days for 2025. Then we jump to semi-detached homes in Fife. The average time on the market today is 115 versus 125 in January 24. So not as big of a jump as what it was for detached. The gaps got slightly smaller with semi-detached. Jumping then to the next property type, you've either got your terrace, your townhouses. Average time on the market today is 148 days versus back last year, January 2024, was 128 days. So roughly 20 days difference.
Okay.
Finally, we then have your flats and your apartments. Average time on the market today is 150 days compared to 144 days in January 2024.
This is quite interesting.
Not a bigger gap.
What does this tell me? And I could make some good assumptions out here because I know the market's in Fife. Detached homes are obviously clearly a higher price point, and there's a lot of new builds going on, which are predominantly semi and detached homes. You tend to find that quite a lot. So hence the reason why detached homes being a higher price point and affordability levels being more challenging, then I'm not surprised that detached homes are taking longer to sell.
No.
When it comes to semi-detached, I'm actually quite surprised that's actually come down. But it might be a lot of people that would normally go for detached, compromising and saying, I tell you what, semi-detached is a lot less in terms of price point. Therefore, I'll go for the semi-detached instead. And they're having a trade-off here. Interestingly, though, how it swings round on terraced and townhouses.
Yep.
I have a sneaking suspicion, though, that's a lot to do with townhouses are predominantly East Neuk and St Andrews. And that's why that could be skewed and show a disproportionate amount, because you would expect terrace to be a lot more affordable. And then you would think to yourself, well, obviously this year, instead of people going for semi-detached and detached, because that's what happened in Dundee when we were looking at the graphs and the data yesterday when I was on with Craig. So it'd be interesting. And I do think that's skewed because it's a lot to do with the fact that terrace and townhouses are together. And I think if we did, I don't think there's a significant enough to actually be able to strip out the townhouses, because I don't think that data is available. But terrace and townhouses are collated together under the land registry together. So I think if you took that out, terrace would be selling faster and townhouses would be selling a lot less as the year before as well. If you split that terraced one. So I think that's why terraces are taking a lot longer to sell, because normally they would be quicker because they were lower priced. Flats, flats and apartments, no surprise there. That's probably about even Stevens, because flats are, again, very affordable. Interestingly enough, Dundee yesterday actually showed that flats were selling quicker. And it actually did show like detached was longer, semi-detached was a wee bit longer, a wee bit less, and terrace was a wee bit less, and then flats were selling the quickest. So it actually showed you a demographic which actually was almost like price related in terms of how it was. Whereas this is a bit different, but I've got a funny feeling this is a lot to do with the mix and the type of properties, because most of the townhouses in East Neuk and St Andrews are at a high price point because they're stone built. They're like, they've got a huge amount of features to them. They're grade C listed typically, or maybe grade B listed, and they've got a whole lot of value in them, hence the reason why they maybe might take a bit longer to sell. And obviously things that talked about legislation as well would have an implication for that overall, definitely. So then I'll ask you then, if we look at, for example, the property market for buyers. I mean, we've looked at that for sellers and how long to spend on the market for sellers. But what about the market for buyers then? What does that graph look like, and what does that data look like?
Yeah, so, and it is interesting because the overall number of homes available in Fife has remained roughly the same over the past year, going from just over 1,000 in January 2024, so 1,064 versus 1,055 in January 2025. So it's very marginal difference between. However, it gets even more interesting when we split it again by property type. So we do have another graph for this one. So let me show you that one. Bear with me 2 seconds.
I've found it. There you go.
Okay. There we go. Perfect. So this then is again by property types, and it's January 24 versus January 2025. And as I say, this is for buyers. So detached homes in Fife, there was 365 for sale in January 2025 compared to 428 in 2024. So that's a 14.7% decrease, which again could be with the affordability of them, as you were just speaking about for the other graph. Then
but it's
again,
interesting to know that when you see these two graphs year on year, that I mean, it's about roughly the same. I mean, over the past year, January 2024 was 1,064 overall, and January 2025 was 1,055. You know, and when you're splitting this down, it actually gets more interesting overall, because then again we're going down to these tenure types. So detached, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're talking about 14.7% decrease in the number of detached properties for sale. That's quite interesting. How could there be less? Because it goes against the supply and demand model, doesn't it? It's how could there be less detached homes? Oh no, actually, year on year, it's more detached for sale, isn't it? Because it's. Or am I looking at the? No, I'm getting mixed up in the numbers. It's less. It's 365 out the number of properties on the market right now are detached, as opposed to the year before it was 428. So you would imagine if it was only 365, which is less than the year before, and therefore demand would, if demand was the same, therefore they would sell quicker. But so that tells us demand was there, but it's maybe not the same as it was before. And what I mean by that is it's not the same. For example, as I said before, there's 20 people that buy in, there's 19 people that buy in East Neuk on average every single month. So that's maybe different now, right across the whole of Fife. That's maybe a lot less. So it'd be interesting to see your weekly update and find out how that ties in.
Definitely. So then we're going to go to semi-detached homes in Fife. So in January 2025, there was 229 for sale versus January 2024, and there was 198. So 229 just now, 198 last year, which is a 15.7 increase. So there is more available this time this year than there was this time last year.
So there's more available, but they sell quicker. Again, there's a misnomer there, isn't there? That's weird. That's the exact opposite, the way round from the detached. It's like, oh my goodness, it's I'll have to have a wee think about that. I'll probably wake up tomorrow morning and go, I've got the answer to that.
I don't even think it won't even be tomorrow morning. It'll be middle of the night tonight, and there'll be an email coming through. I'll wait for it. And then again, we're going to have the same then, because when you look at terrace/townhouses, this time this year there's 131 in January 2025, compared to only 107 January 2024. So
Mhm.
22.4% increase. So 131 versus 107.
Again, that's no surprise because, as we spoke about before, the townhouses potentially in the northeast of Fife and the East Fife.
Yep. Then we'll jump to flats and apartments. So January 2025, 243 available. And this time last year, there was actually 240. So hardly anything, marginal. It's 1.3% increase to be precise. Basically the same. 3 in it. And then a stat that we didn't have with the last graph, but we do with this one, is others. So, whether it be mobile homes, building, plots, could it come anything like that, all other property types. There was 87 for sale in January of this year versus 91 of January last year. So a 4.4% decrease.
This actually reinforces to me the fact that in Fife we've got a stable market. It's a bit different when you go over to Dundee and Edinburgh and Glasgow. There are different types of markets in Perth as well and across Scotland, even in England as well. But it tells me year on year it's quite a stable market. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We're sitting on the 30th of January right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens on the 6th when base rates will be announced, if they're going to be reduced or not. Now, it's something like a 92% chance, according to all the think tanks and the banks and stuff like that they think the base rates will be reduced. But then all that does is then tell us straight away that they've probably got that factored into their rates just now. So when base rates do get reduced, ultimately, I can't see mortgages getting any cheaper. Because if you look at the swap rates and gilts market and bonds and stuff like that, they're all paying higher. So in order to, you can't really pay these returns if you've got base rates reducing, because then you're taking in less money than you're actually paying out. So it's a difficult situation at the banks in right now. Inflation, for example, is sitting at 2.6, but core inflation, where house costs, utilities, and stuff like that, and is actually higher than 2.6. So inflation's still not really technically under control. Unemployment's around about 4.4%, which is still full employment in an economy. But wages is actually year on year is actually way beyond that as well in terms of inflation. It's about double the inflation figure, which is crazy. I mean, how could you continue to keep inflation under control if you keep pumping money into the economy all the time? This is why if they reduce interest rates, then people on the current mortgages then will have more money to put into the economy, more money to spend. Therefore, you know what happens when supply and demand happens? Demand gets higher. Supply is restricted, prices go up, inflationary pressure. So I'm going to call it, and I'm going to make a different assumption here. There's a lot of pressure on the Bank of England to reduce the rate by a quarter point in February, and almost they were saying it as well. And they were talking about 3 months ago, they were talking about 5 interest rate cuts this year. And then it went down to 4. And then suddenly it went to 3.
Yep.
And then suddenly we were at 2 with the think tanks. And then suddenly we're almost like, see if we can get a cut in February, that'll be it for the rest of the year.
Yep.
That's what they're talking about now. I saw that coming, to be honest, with the data that was presented in front of me. I don't know how they can't see it. They maybe just put it into, well, they do. They put it into a financial model when it comes out with an answer and they go, yeah, that's the answer, it must be. Really? Like, didn't think so. If you look at the obvious things right in front of you, you can tell what's happening here. So that's the sort of thing. So I think it might be a quarter point, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't reduce them at all, because the inflationary pressure, the potential that's what they're worried about. So it'll be interesting to do that. What does that mean then? Why am I saying that? Why am I making that clear to people right now? And why am I making it clear to buyers and sellers? Because if you're buying and selling, just get on with it. Don't wait, for goodness sake. You are playing, dare I say the phrase, playing with fire? You're taking a gamble at this point in time, especially if you're a buy-to-let landlord and you're thinking, oh, I might wait to renegotiate my mortgage, renegotiate my deal, thinking that interest rates are going to come down. I don't think they are. I even saw somebody on one of the forums, actually a mortgage advisor, saying actually interest rates have gone up over the last month on the interest rates on mortgages and that. They've actually gone up. So even the banks have actually factored in the fact that it's not going to be 3 or 4 decreases anymore. And then they're talking about it could be 4 and it could be 3.5% next year in 2026. Still don't see that happen at this point in time. I think that's pie in the sky thinking and just probably irresponsible as somebody saying that, in all honesty.
Yep.
So that's where it is right now. But why I said that to buyers and sellers and investors and landlords and tenants looking to buy as well, don't wait. The most important thing is you go now if it suits you. That is the whole point. The longer you wait, the more risk you attach to what you're doing. It's kind of like Bitcoin in a sense. Oh, it's at 100,000, it might go up a bit more. And then all of it tanks to about 50 grand overnight. And then you've lost everything and you can't recover that back. It's probably like the addicted gambler who actually thinks he's going to get his money back if he keeps putting the money in the machine. I'll win it back somehow. I'll win it back. Listen, the odds are stacked in your favor, against you, by the way. They're not in your favor. So the odds are stacked against you. The probability of you losing is about is 70% the probability of you winning.
Yep.
So the idea is, what is quit while you're ahead, buy now, get on with it, fix your rate, know your numbers, and then you know exactly what to do from there.
Yep.
That's what I think. So let's talk about this then. Why you've got a stable market. You know what tenures and how long it's taking to sell. People should really go sooner rather than later because it is taking a lot longer. If you think you're going to be selling for spring, you've got no chance. I mean, we're talking here right now, completion. You're talking about even detached on average, it's 161 divided by 30. That's effectively 5 months. So if you're in, we're just starting February. So you've got February, March, April, May, June. You're almost at July. So you'll be selling and you'll be finally getting in, selling your home and concluding in summer, almost coming into autumn. If you go now, that's why you go now.
Yep.
Plus the fact you'll miss the rush. You'll beat them. You'll beat the rush because everybody's going to wait till April. They're all going to want their garden to be in full bloom. They're all going to want their wonderful photographs. They're all going to wait for April for the blue skies and all the rest of it. That could be added, by the way.
There's ways around these things. Yeah.
Clever photographer can add a blue sky quite easily for that. But they're going to do that. They're going to wait. So why would you then wait for a huge oversupply to come into the market for you then to compete against everybody else at your price point? That's why you go now. But the most important point of this, though, is your presentation. You've got to get your presentation right. You've got to have that done. And it's so important, your presentation of your Fife home. Let's talk about that. Go and you talk about this a bit more, Sophie. Talk about what could we do? What should we be doing about the presentation of your Fife home if you're thinking about going now?
Yeah, well, think about it. Buyers out there have no shortage of tools to help them browse properties on the portals, meaning they can scroll through hundreds of options in a matter of minutes. Now, another figure for you then. The average buyer views just 4 to 5 homes before making a decision on which home to buy, spending barely 25 minutes in each. And when you think 25 minutes for a home that someone's maybe going to be in for 10, 15 years isn't long at all. So it really is first impressions count. So if your property doesn't stand out from the crowd with top quality photos, well-designed brochures, engaging video tours, and we speak about this so much, being obviously a multimedia agency, that it's engaging videos and not the silent movies, it risks being dismissed without even a second thought. And that's why it's not just about having the right asking price. While that is an important factor, it's also about making sure your home looks and feels irresistible online. Because buyers need to imagine themselves, because if it is just that 25-minute viewing, buyers need to imagine themselves living there. And it all starts with how your property is presented. And I say this when I'm out all the time at valuations, our video walkthroughs, it's almost like virtual viewing now, basically getting a virtual viewing that's so in depth that actually when they step through the door to do that 25-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute viewing, there's no surprises to them. They know every nook and cranny of that property. They're just going in and getting that feeling and just imagining and picturing where their furniture is going to go. Then the next thing they need to decide is what their offer looks like.
I'll play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
I'm just going to put on a video with some music on it. And I think that'll be more than enough for me to convince people to come through my door and buy my property. Now, let me just explain to you why that'll never convince them. Because it's just as good as looking at the photographs, that's it. It tells them nothing new about anything of your property that they couldn't see in the photographs anyway. Because that's all it is. They know, your buyer knows nothing at that point in time with what we call a silent movie with the music on it. I mean, hey, the music's catchy.
Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's a bit green sleeves, yeah. If you ever remember on the phone, oh my God, to the council, green sleeves playing in the background on a piano, that sort of thing. But if you've got a silent movie, it tells your buyer nothing. It doesn't tell them anything about the area. It doesn't tell them anything really about the property they wouldn't either see in the photographs. But it makes you feel nice as a seller. It makes you feel wonderful as a seller, and you're sucked into that scenario. You're sucked into that. I'll be honest, that's what it is, because I've done it before. It's like, oh, that's fantastic. But then if you logically think about it, it's like, well, wait a minute. If the buyer knows nothing about what I know about my property, how do I get that message across? How do I tell the buyer it's a wonderful place to live? How do I tell the buyer how close all the shops are? How close the Fife coastal path is? I had to get that in.
I have to get that in there, yeah.
How do I tell them how close the primary school is, or what primary school is that close? How do I tell them what the weather's like here? How do I tell them what it's like to live there? How do I? Because remember, notice I'm telling them everything about what it's like to be there, not about the property.
It's the lifestyle as well.
People buy lifestyle. They're not buying your property because it's a wonderful looking property. They're buying it for what it can give them, not what it is. They're buying benefits. They're not buying features. Features is your property. The benefits is what we talk about in a video to what that property can give them. You can't replicate that with music and in a video picture and going through. You can't replicate that at all. You need presenter talk up to do that. And that's what often gets someone who is time restricted. They don't have enough time. That's why that's surprising. 4 and 5 homes they look at and then they make a decision.
Yeah.
But that is the people you try to convince, because you get in front of them on this. Exactly why people are watching right now or listening to this podcast right now. 3 to 4 hours a day people spend on these. I need to stay off it. I need to stop watching Instagram reels. It's like once you get locked into it, you can't get out. It's like I need to get out. I'm still trying to press the back button and I can't get out. It's but that's how addictive it is. But the algorithms work out what people will want to see. So when you do presenter talk-ups, the algorithms on social media work out straight away that this is creative content that they will want to put in front of their viewers. Why do they want to put in front of their viewers? Because they know by their analytics and the way their habits that they're forming, they're collecting the data on, they know that they'll be interested in that property. So organically pushed out to them because it's a good high quality video and it's also good high quality sound. That's why they love it. And they love it because they can run adverts at the bottom of it as well and make money out of it. So that's why they put our videos right in front of people all the time, for that very reason. Silent movies, old news, went out in 2010. That's how long ago it was to do silent movies. And yet people are using them 15 years later and almost trying to flog it out like it's like a new thing. Oh, look at this wonderful new, hey, did that in 2010. It's defunct. Don't do it anymore. We do proper talk-ups for that reason, because talk-ups, because I know that's what engages the buyer at the other end. Everything as a seller, listen, if you're a seller, everything that you loved in your property when you first bought it is everything we tell your buyer about, because that's what they'll love in your property when they first buy it as well.
Yep.
You're leaving because it's no longer suitable for your purpose. They're arriving because it's suitable for the purpose that you had it for in the first place. That's the story you tell them in a talk-up, what it is to them. That's how important it is. And that ultimately is what drives up demand and drives up price as well. And value in people's minds, value in a buyer's mind. That often gets them to that point where they make a decision, where they otherwise might see a property and within 0.3 of a second, they're past it and they just ignore it. Because it's only pictures. Not interested. Video. Whoa, wait a minute. Video. Oh, somebody's talking about the area. Let's see what's going on here. That's what happens. Autoplay on most people. That's why it's so important. I've laboured that point quite a lot, but it's so important to have a presenter to walk through and talk up about your property when you're actually selling it, because it will potentially attract a buyer that otherwise you wouldn't get with somebody else, because they've got no time, but they've got the money.
Yep.
And that's what you want, people that will pay. It gives you better choices if you get a wee bit more. If you get 3,000 more, hey, better in your pocket as the seller.
Absolutely.
More choices. Pay for your legal fees. Pay for your estate agent fees. Stuff like that. Get us free for nothing, because we managed to get that out of somebody in the end. That's the whole point of good negotiators. That's what they're there for. They should justify what they do. Add value to what you're doing. So it's not just about having the right asking price. It's about making sure your home looks. And I think it's really about making sure your home looks and feels irresistible. So people think, I've got to have that. I have to live there. It's like, I've never seen that place before. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's like God's country. It is, believe it or not. So buyers need to imagine themselves living there, like you'd said before, previously, Sophie. And that really starts with how your property is presented overall.
Yep.
So we've talked about the presentation of the home for the sellers. What advice can you give to Fife buyers?
Okay.
Is it maybe be proactive, not reactive? Is it along that line?
Oh, absolutely. Because it isn't just about, it's not finding the perfect home. It's not all about what's just on the market. It's about being that one step ahead. And we always say it, get your ducks in a row and be prepared. Because did you actually know that around 10% of properties never actually make it onto the portals, which means there's many buyers missing out potentially on their dream home simply because they're relying solely on online searches.
Then the question is, why does 10% of properties never make it to market? What is that? Is that just, are they sold off market to someone else?
Potentially, yeah. Or is it been a family member that's actually reached out and said, or has it been sold off market
for someone else? And
yes.
and ultimately, it's usually I would take a really good guess at this and say it's usually typically because the buyer has actually registered with a estate agent, and they've got first dibs at it because they've then demonstrated to the this is key for a buyer, by the way. You've demonstrated as a buyer to the estate agent. I know it sounds daft, and it's like, but this is the type of things you have to do if you want to get in there before anyone else. You've demonstrated to the estate agent that you're actually in a position to do something, and you could pay. You could make an offer the seller might not be able to refuse, and it might not necessarily be a higher price. It might be a flexible entry date.
Yep.
You might be prepared to wait 9 months, for example, till they find their next house, and that puts you in prime position because they won't be able to find a buyer like that. It would wait that long potentially. And
absolutely.
you might be able to put down a security deposit, a non-refundable security deposit, more or less to pin your colours to the mast and conclude missives as quick as possible for that person, to give them the certainty that they can go and shop for another property and make an offer. That does happen, and that's literally called off-market deals. That's what you call them. 1 in 10 you're missing out on. If you've not got your dream home yet as a buyer, by the way, it's probably because you've not registered with the estate agents.
No.
And actually promoted yourself as the best person as a buyer. Because you've got to be. You've got to be in somebody's mind. You've got to disrupt somebody. You've got to get their mindset. So when somebody says, I've got the perfect, I've got, a beautiful house that's coming on, they then think about you. They think, oh, so-and-so's going to love that house, because you've disrupted them, because you've told them that you're in a position to do something, and therefore the estate agent will phone you straight away before it even goes anywhere else, because they might think they can get on. An estate agent wants to get an off-market deal because it's an easy gig for them, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's absolutely right. Many buyers do miss out on their dream homes because they're relying solely on online searches. So registering directly with an estate agent, that is definitely one thing to do. We always say as well, and I speak about on my weekly updates, we mentioned the weekly updates at the beginning of this show. It's not just telling you the facts and the statistics, but actually on there, I also tell you what properties we've got coming. So you're actually getting to find out even before the pre-portals even hit the social media channels. I actually tell you what we've got coming soon. So that's why the Fife property market update every Monday at 10 is a key one, because you hear about it there before even social media sees the pre-portal. So that's something to do. If you don't already watch the market updates, watch them, because that's where you'll actually find out about it before
This is quite important to actually follow the page as well for the area you're talking about. So if you're looking for a property in East Neuk, for example, follow the East Neuk page. If you're looking for Glenrothes, follow the in Glenrothes Fife Properties page. And the reason for that is because we sometimes do top secrets. So we've actually not signed it up, but we've been out to a property who's actually thinking about coming to market.
Yep.
And we tell you in a top secret, potentially, what that property is, the price point it's at, and give you an idea. And if you're interested in that property, you can register with us as quick as possible, so we can go back to that person and say, we might be able to do a deal now. That's why it's important to actually follow and listen to the pages to get there before anyone else. A lot of people are actually just, we've gone back to a slow moving market with buyers. It's like, oh, well, I can take all the time in the world. No, you can't. You can't. If you want to dream home. And I'll give you an example. A straw poll right now. You don't need to put some in the comments. If you want to put some in the comments, you're more than happy to. Are you living in the home of your dreams right now? Let me put it another way. If you were renting your house right now, would you continue to live in it? If the answer to that is no, then you need to speak to us to find your dream home.
Yep.
Think about that. If you were renting your house right now, would you continue to live in it?
Beyond that,
registering direct is the most important point, isn't it? That's why it says you need to speak to us. Registering direct to the stage to give you an inside track on up and coming properties before they're actually widely advertised. Don't just, I would love it. Hey, just register with us. It's like, register with all the estate agents. That's the advice I can give you. Register with all the estate agents, because you never know who's going to have the right property for you. I'll be able to tell you for the right property. As I said, it's 1 in 10 properties do not make it onto the portals. They get sold off market. 1 in 10. So no matter how many estate agents we've got. So there's 500 to 600 sold every single month and bought every single month in Fife. So 50 of them potentially, because that's the numbers we're doing. We're not actually doing it. So 50 of them potentially might not have been even on the market at all. They might have just been sold as a point in the land registry. That's why there's sometimes a wee difference in numbers between us and what the total numbers are overall at the end of the year. Beyond that, really, as a buyer, it's about patience is really the key. What are the things we've got to say about that then?
Well, as we always say, it's your biggest asset. So it's going to take time finding that right property, especially when you are balancing factors like budget, location, schooling, family needs. What do they look like?
Yeah.
And it's not something you want to rush, because rushing could lead to regrets later down the line and you only having to go through the process again. So as we said, it's your biggest asset. There's a lot of money at stake. So it's worth sometimes just taking that step back and considering every option carefully.
Yeah.
That is
I'm like, let's go for it.
Yes.
Fortune favours the brave.
Mhm. Yes. But
But
that then means, so then, you know, whether you're buying or selling, Fife's property market continues to offer opportunities, provided though you approach it with the right mindset. And this is what we touched on at the beginning, mindset. For sellers, the message is clear. Price realistically, present professionally, and ensure your home shines in a crowded market. But for the buyers, it's about staying proactive, not reactive, patient, and ready to act when the property comes along. That right property, your dream property, act
yeah,
fast.
and that's definitely. I mean, ultimately, the Fife property market really rewards those that who take I think, a considerate, maybe a strategic approach to this.
Yep.
So whether your goal is actually overall, and that kind of my final words for this, is whether your goal is actually to sell quickly or secure the dream home, understanding the market dynamics can help you achieve the best possible outcome. And that's what we're going to talk about next week, Sophie. So next week, your homework for next week and your report that you've got to give. So you've got to type something up for next week and get the data. We'll talk about exactly how long Fife properties are taking to sell. And you've got quite a lot of that data already, so you can, no doubt, you can be able to put that report together, and we'll talk about that in next week's midweek show. Yeah, thanks for coming on. That's brilliant. We've had a lot of insight. I think I can't impress on sellers enough how important it is to get the right message across for your property. And it's not necessarily about selling the property, it's selling the dream that comes with it.
Correct. Yeah.
And on that note, thanks very much. And to everybody for listening, tuning in. If you're on the rerun, please feel free to jump in and say something or message us direct if you need to get in touch with us, because we're always on social media. We've always got a link to our phone for Messenger from all the office pages. And we can speak to you then. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye for now.
Take care. Bye for now.